Have you ever noticed how the people who can't sleep at night are often the same people who seem perfectly fine during the day? They laugh at lunch, they contribute in meetings, they text you back with reassuring words. But when the world goes quiet and everyone else drifts off, they're still there. Eyes open, mind racing, staring at the ceiling like it holds answers. There's something strange about insomnia that we don't talk about enough. It's not just about being tired. It's not even really about sleep. Because if you dig deeper into the psychology of people who can't sleep at night, you'll find something unexpected. For many of them, the sleeplessness isn't the problem. It's the symptom of something far more complex happening beneath the surface. So what's really going on in the minds of people who can't sleep? And why does nighttime feel less like rest and more like a reckoning? Let me paint you a picture. It's 2 a.m. Your body is exhausted, but your mind? Your mind is throwing a festival. It's replaying that conversation from 3 days ago, the one where you said something slightly awkward. It's drafting emails you'll never send. It's solving problems that don't exist yet and catastrophizing scenarios that probably never will. You know you should sleep. You want to sleep. But there's this hum of mental activity that won't power down. Here's what's fascinating. Research in cognitive psychology shows that people with chronic insomnia often have what's called cognitive arousal at night. Their brains don't just stay awake. They become more active as the night progresses. It's as if the moment everyone else checks out, their mind clocks in for the night shift. But here's the thing. This isn't random. This isn't just bad luck or poor sleep hygiene. The psychology behind this runs much deeper. Let's talk about something you might recognize. For some people, staying awake at night isn't entirely involuntary. Somewhere beneath the frustration and the desperate counting of sheep, there's a part of them that doesn't quite trust sleep. And this is where it gets complex. Sleep requires surrender. It requires you to let go of control, to trust that you'll be okay for the next 8 hours while you're unconscious. For people who've experienced trauma, who grew up in unpredictable environments, or who've learned that vigilance equals safety, that surrender feels dangerous. Attachment theory gives us insight here. Research by Mary Ainsworth and John Bowlby showed that our early relationships shape how we experience safety in the world. If you grew up never quite sure when the next storm was coming, whether that was a parent's mood swing, financial instability, or emotional chaos, your nervous system learned to stay alert. It learned that relaxation is a luxury you can't afford. So at night, when the distractions fade and you're alone with yourself, that old programming kicks in. Your body says, "We should rest." But your nervous system says, "Not on my watch." The exhaustion almost becomes a companion, a proof that you're doing something, that you're prepared, that you're not letting your guard down. But there's another layer to this. The racing thoughts, the mental replay, the what-ifs and should-haves that populate the 3 a.m. hour. They're not random noise. Psychologists call it rumination. But I think of it as a theater production your mind puts on every night, and you're the captive audience. Here's what's really happening. During the day, you're busy. You're distracted by work, by people, by the constant input of modern life. But at night, when the external noise stops, the internal noise amplifies. And for many people, that internal noise isn't just thoughts. It's unprocessed emotions demanding attention. You replay that conversation because there's something about it you haven't fully felt yet. You worry about tomorrow because there's anxiety from yesterday you haven't addressed. You solve imaginary problems because there are real feelings you're avoiding. Research in emotional regulation shows that people with insomnia often have difficulty processing emotions during waking hours. So the emotions wait. They queue up. And when you finally lie down, they all show up at once, dressed as thoughts. That's why you can't just stop thinking. You're not thinking, you're feeling. And the thoughts are just the language your mind uses to make sense of emotions it doesn't know how to hold. And maybe that's the real heartbreak of insomnia. The profound loneliness of it. You're lying next to someone who's sleeping soundly, or you're alone in your apartment. But either way, you're isolated in your wakefulness. The world has moved on to dreams, and you're stuck in this liminal space between day and night, between consciousness and rest. There's research suggesting that chronic insomnia is often linked to feelings of disconnection, not just from others, but from yourself, from your body, which feels like it's betraying you, from your mind, which won't cooperate, from the natural rhythm of life that everyone else seems to follow effortlessly. Night becomes this echo chamber where every fear, every regret, every anxiety gets amplified by silence. And silence, when you're alone with difficult thoughts, is not emptiness. Silence is space for everything you've been running from all day to finally catch up. But here's what's fascinating. Some research on circadian rhythms and personality suggests that people who naturally gravitate toward nighttime, who feel most alive when the world is quiet, often have a different relationship with solitude. They're not avoiding connection. They're seeking a specific kind of connection that only happens in the absence of external demands. Maybe you're a night person in a world built for morning people. Maybe your creativity, your deepest thinking, your most authentic self only emerges when the performance of daytime ends. Let's talk about something else. The rituals. You've probably developed them. The specific way you arrange your pillows. The temperature that has to be just right. The meditation app, the white noise machine, the supplements lined up on your nightstand like tiny soldiers in the war against wakefulness. These rituals aren't just about sleep. They're about control. When so much of life feels uncertain, when anxiety is this shapeless thing you can't pin down, sleep becomes a problem you can try to solve. You can control your environment, your routine, your input. And if you just find the right combination, the right formula, maybe you can crack the code. But here's the truth. The more you try to force sleep, the more elusive it becomes. It's like trying to force yourself to fall in love or force yourself to be creative. Sleep, like those things, requires a kind of letting go that control actively prevents. Cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia addresses this directly. It's not about adding more strategies or more control. It's about releasing the grip. It's about building trust with your body again. And that's terrifying for people who've learned that trust is dangerous. Here's something you might not talk about, but definitely experience. The morning performance. No matter how little you slept, you get up. You put on the face. You drink the coffee. You show up. You function. Because admitting the depth of your exhaustion feels like admitting weakness, like you're failing at something basic that everyone else manages naturally. So you perform competence. You perform energy. And meanwhile, there's this accumulating debt, not just of sleep, but of authenticity. Of being seen for what you're actually experiencing. Research on social psychology shows that this kind of chronic masking is exhausting in its own right. You're not just tired from lack of sleep. You're tired from pretending you're not tired. From downplaying it when someone asks how you slept. From acting like the insomnia isn't affecting every aspect of your life when it absolutely is. And this is where it gets interesting. The more you hide it, the more isolated you become. The more isolated you become, the harder it is to sleep. It's a cycle that feeds itself. Let's go deeper. Because sometimes, insomnia is morning. You're lying there at 3 a.m., and you're not just thinking, you're grieving. Grieving the person you thought you'd be by now. Grieving relationships that ended or never began. Grieving the timeline your life was supposed to follow, but didn't. Night is when these griefs surface because there's nowhere left to run from them. No meeting to attend, no friend to text, no scroll to numb with. Just you and the accumulated losses you carry. And our culture doesn't teach us how to grieve in healthy ways. We're taught to move on, to focus on the positive, to be productive even with our pain. So grief goes underground. It waits. And at night, when your defenses are down, it emerges as sleeplessness. Psychologist J. William Worden's work on grief shows that unprocessed loss doesn't disappear. It transforms. Sometimes into anxiety, sometimes into depression, and sometimes into insomnia. Your body's way of saying, there's something here that needs attention. But it's also honest. It's your body's refusal to pretend everything is okay when it isn't. It's your nervous system's way of saying, we can't keep going like this. Maybe the insomnia is pointing to a job that's slowly destroying you, or a relationship where you're constantly performing, or a version of yourself you've outgrown but haven't given yourself permission to leave behind. I'm not romanticizing sleeplessness. I'm not suggesting it's some kind of spiritual awakening or that you should embrace it. But I am suggesting that before you try to fix it, before you add another supplement or another technique, you might want to ask, what is this trying to tell me? Because sometimes the body knows before the mind does. And sometimes the path to better sleep isn't about sleep at all. It's about listening to what the sleeplessness is revealing. Here's what I want you to know. If you're someone who can't sleep at night, you're not broken. You're not doing it wrong. You're not weak or dysfunctional or failing at being human. You're a person whose nervous system is working exactly as it was trained to work. You're someone carrying things, traumas, griefs, fears, responsibilities that were never meant to be carried alone. You're someone whose body is speaking a language that our productivity-obsessed culture hasn't taught us to understand. The racing thoughts, they're not the enemy. They're information. The exhaustion, it's not a character flaw. It's a signal. The difficulty surrendering to sleep, it's not stubbornness. It's a nervous system that learned, often for good reason, that letting go isn't safe. And the path forward isn't about fighting yourself harder. It's about compassion. It's about treating yourself the way you'd treat a frightened child who can't sleep because they're afraid of the dark. You wouldn't yell at them to just close their eyes and try harder. You'd acknowledge their fear. You'd help them feel safe. Maybe it's time to do that for yourself. Because here's what the 3 a.m. version of you knows that the daytime version tries to forget. You're tired. Not just physically. You're tired of performing, of holding it together, of carrying weights you never asked for. You're tired of pretending the insomnia isn't affecting you. You're tired of fighting your own nervous system every single night. And that tiredness? It's valid. It's real. It deserves more than another productivity hack or sleep hygiene tip. It deserves genuine care, professional support if you need it, and most of all, it deserves your own compassion. So tonight, if you find yourself staring at the ceiling again, here's what I want you to remember. The wakefulness isn't the whole story. It's a chapter in a much larger narrative about a person. You, who's been trying so hard for so long, who's been carrying so much, who deserves rest in every sense of that word. The people who can't sleep at night aren't just tired. They're sensitive. They're thoughtful. They're often the ones who feel things deeply, who carry others' burdens, who notice what everyone else overlooks. Their insomnia isn't a weakness. It's a nervous system that's been working overtime, often protecting them from things they don't even consciously remember. And maybe, just maybe, learning to sleep again isn't about conquering the night. It's about making peace with yourself. About creating a life where your nervous system finally feels safe enough to rest. About honoring what the sleeplessness has been trying to tell you all along. You deserve that rest. You deserve that peace. And you deserve to know that even in your sleeplessness, you're not alone.